This project stems from the research I began for my dissertation, a study of the spatial identity of Peruvian migrants in Britain and how this informs the architecture of an intercultural future. I was drawn to the topic because I have a Peruvian mother and a British father, and I wanted to explore this identity further. During my research, I went to a celebration of Latin American culture in Elephant and Castle, and when I was there, heard about the proposed demolition of the shopping centre, which is a hub for the local community from a variety of diasporas. Between the 1890s and the 1940s, Elephant and Castle became the location for a thriving shopping area known as the Piccadilly of the South. The area was home to a diverse mix of people, living in everything from modest almshouses to traditional terraces. The existing shopping centre was designed by Bossenvein and Osmond for the Willits Group, as part of an architectural competition launched in 1958. It proposed a new type of building, fully enclosed and the first of this kind in Europe. The building opened its doors in 1965, and it consists of a 3-story shopping centre dominated by an 11-story office block called Hannibal House. The development was part of the city-wide post-war development in the 60s, which saw properties destroyed by enemy bombing in World War II, replaced by concrete towers and building blocks. The shopping centre has an upper and lower level shopping galleries that are dominated by shops and restaurants. The upper level also connects with the existing National Railway station. In addition to this, a bowling alley and a bingo club are located at the top of the building. The existing Northern Line Underground station entrance is a building adjacent to the shopping centre that is located in the northwest corner of the site, highlighted here in yellow, with other adjacent buildings including the Charlie Chaplin pub, the Coronet Theatre, and the overground railway station line. The existing building is a reinforced concrete frame structure with cladding that has been replaced over the years. Many local residents are against the proposed development by Delancey, as it does not provide minimum levels of social housing, the affordable housing is not as described, the traders from the shopping centre will not be able to afford the new rent prices, and the popular bingo hall is not being reinstated. The site is exposed to the elements as the road creates a barrier for development close to the building. Therefore, there is minimal shading from the surrounding buildings and the wind is funneled up a long road coming from the southwest. London shares the climate of the southeast of England, with mild winters and temperate summers. The sun shines on average 5 days out of 6. However, there is also significant rainfall, averaging between 40 to 55 millimetres per month. London is set to have the climate of Barcelona by 2050, and the urban heat island effect will have more of an impact, and the rising sea levels could cause more frequent tidal flooding events. Finally, this roundabout is one of the pollution hotspots in London, with levels 2.8 times above the EU limit. What defines British identity has changed over time, and this decade has been no different, with British social attitudes research finding that there has been fundamental changes to identity, such as a sharp decline in religious affiliation. While the research has found that immigration is viewed more positively than a decade ago, the perception of cultural integration has reversed, with a rise from 32% to 38% of people who believe that immigration undermines British culture. However, when asked how to define British identity, most people in the research struggled to provide a definition, with answers ranging from drinking tea to politeness. I would like to share with you a clip from Riz Ahmed's Britain's Broken Up With Me, which frames Britain in a modern interpretation as an abusive partner, and he explained he wrote it to explore all the emotions, often conflicting ones, quite contradictory feelings, about having mixed Pakistani, British heritage and being born in the UK. This version has been edited.
I was a mogul. Had the bling and the girls, grit and the pearls. My cash was a quarter of the stash in the world. And this stray, pale chick came to trade. I laid with her, came to pay. She straight slithered in and stayed. I couldn't kick her out. She saw I was at war with myself, and I'm a fool. When you're at war with yourself, you're easy to divide and rule. She had me locked down. Beat me red and blue till I knew that right was white and not brown. When they make you hate yourself, you hand over your crown. She moved in, I was a guest unwanted in my own house. And she had beef with some German next man. I went to war for her twice. Almost lost my left hand. Asked her to leave. I'll protest peacefully. I'll be the best man. She got violent. Left in the end because she was stressed out. But as she left, she took a knife out from the bedstand, carved a scar down my middle just to leave me stretched out. I survived her attempt at dead man, but see the bleeding never ends, man. My cashmere jumper still stained red, man. Of course, she was gone. No, I was finally free. I try to get back on my feet. My phone flashed and I see she keeps calling. Answer the phone, she keeps bawling. So she's broke. And how she's living is appalling. She needs building up, restoring. Told me her soldiers have all fallen. Begged me to rush like the wind, bringing the warmth in. A sob story and I bought it. The truth is, it felt good. She asked me to move in. I looked up to her and needed soothing. I thought if she accepted me, my worth would be proven. So I moved in. Yeah. Had a few kids, yeah. The future of mixed cultures. Born in our house, a new movement. But I was so stupid. You didn't stop to think how badly it would just confuse them. Like, Daddy, why does Mum hate me? She looks at me and says, who's this? Britannia breaking up with me. Brittany, baby, please stop. I thought we had a special thing. I know that we can make it up, Britannia. If you're breaking up with me, I might just break up. This will either be the end of me or be the wake up. Britannia breaking up with me. So this is the breakup.
The recent Black Lives Matter protests have raised awareness for anti-racism work around the world, and particularly in Britain, have provoked discussion about how we reconcile our colonial past. One of the propositions to come from this is for a national museum exploring the history of empire and slave trade. It is problematic that most people don't know that slave owners were compensated $20 million for emancipation, and taxpayers only cleared this debt in 2015, for example. Fast forward to now, and the gentrification of London has displaced many marginalised communities out of their homes, and this proposal hopes to show that the current redevelopment of the Elephant and Castle shopping centre by Delancey is part of this problem, and how it could be instead. There are two distinct strategies in this proposal, linked in this diagram to the initial collage which evokes the intended sense of place. The first strategy is the Elephant and Castle British Institute for Intercultural Identity, a centre for the exploration and celebration of modern British identity and the forgotten history which makes up our diverse nation. Intended to provoke discussion and raise awareness, but also provide space for personal reflection about what it means to be British and live in Britain today. The second strategy is the new build housing and market above the existing basement. This was designed with the community in mind, adaptable, colourful and inhabitable. The market has been incorporated into the dynamic of the housing to keep a vibrant and safe atmosphere for the residents, while they also have private spaces of their own on the second level. The Civic Centre has a separate area for staff and the more private activities such as classroom, teaching, counsellors and lawyers. The proposal will maximise the full use of the site, proposing a variety of green spaces and connecting with the local context. Here is the existing reinforced concrete frame structure. This proposal makes an intervention in the existing structure, removing some floors, as can be seen here, to open up the building while making use of the vast amounts of embodied energy in the structure and foundation. In discussion with the structural engineer, she advised that it would be very feasible to take sections of the building away, as the compressive strength would be considerable, but tensile reinforcement would be required to mimic the existing floors. This would be necessary for the tower also, where steel bar and steel wires will be used as cross-bracing, with sections of existing floors kept as platforms and new steel stairs also providing bracing. Additionally, steel wires will reinforce where the floor has been removed from the basement. More structural detail can be found in the technical report. First, the top two reinforced concrete floors will be stripped away and the roof of the basement slab cleared. After this, an incision will be made in the basement floor to create an opening, and the bottom 5 floors of the tower are to be stripped away. Then the intermediate basement floor is stripped away and the columns reinforced. The community will come in at this point and build the civic centre walls. The market and houses are built on top of the existing basement slab, awaiting the final input from the residents, who will have early access to finish the design of their houses. The tower is also reclad, insulated and glazing improved. Finally, planting is completed and the building finally checked, and the site is opened with a celebration and performance in the civic space. Now I would like to take you on some journeys through the project, which will show the primary spaces. I shall start with following a family through the Civic Institute, and then move to a market stall holder, and then follow a family through a day in the life of one of the houses. Join me as we follow the Shankler family, who have heard about the Institute from their friends and are excited to visit. It is a special day out, and thus they are dressed for the evening show, and are also looking forward to seeing what events there are for the day. They arrive at the Elephant and Castle Underground station, turn left and see the grand staircase descending into the depths. They notice that the site feels very green, and they see people milling around down in the lower area. They feel that the centre is inviting and begin their journey down, past people sitting on the steps as the summer sun scorches down. As they move down the staircase, they notice that the air gets cooler and the sound from the outside road diminishes. They shiver with anticipation as what looks like a hanging underground garden begins to reveal itself. When they get to the bottom of the stairs, they see the information desk and walk over to find out what is happening today. They are told there is a variety of events. If they start by walking through the forest to the primary exhibition, A Changing Britain, afterwards they can record their reflections in the listening booth. This will then join the collection which is played in the forest, and they will hear these as they walk through. Then they could see the visiting exhibition called The Flavour of India, Food and Fusion in the temporary exhibition space, which is linked to the cafe serving food throughout the day. After lunch in the cafe, they could join a discussion in the Pillar Hall on changing gender roles in an intercultural environment, or also just watch if they prefer. And finally, in the evening, there is a performance of Peruvian dance through the ages in the Dr. Vishna Razia Theatre named after the neonatologist who was the first healthcare worker to die from coronavirus, a Malaysian immigrant. Or there is a film being screened in the rear rooms next to the group space, where a photography group is meeting. They ask if there is level access to the theatre as they are meeting a family friend for the show who needs wheelchair accessibility. Of course, they reply. The whole building has level access after entering via the lift, which connects all floors by the primary entrance, and a front row seat has been reserved in the stalls of the theatre for the evening show. The family thank the attendant and begin their walk through the forest towards the exhibition, listening as they go.
You know, in a country where you felt safe.
Mm.
You know, this, and the freedom that gives me. Like one of the things I did when I first arrived back in Peru, when I was 11, I got given a bike, and one day after school I just went off on my bike, like I'd always done. Totally freaked my parents out.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, but what's the matter? It's what I normally do. It's not a big deal, you know. I had to sit me down and explain that, you know, it's not the same here, and, yeah, there's more danger.
As the family reach the end of the forest walk, the light brightens and the building opens out in front of them, and they see a bustling open space, and from here they can see all the rooms described by the entrance attendant, and once they gather their bearings they move to enter the primary exhibition, A Changing Britain. The Shanklas enter the exhibition space and follow it through to the end, passing through the history of immigration in the British Isles, beginning with the spread of the Beaker complex to Britain between 3900 and 1200 BCE, which was a migration from the continent that replaced above 90% of Britain's Neolithic gene pool within a few hundred years. Through the history of the British Empire uncovered, important areas such as Windrush, and finally to the modern climate refugee migration. Other parts of the exhibition would include cultural expression of modern Britain and an interactive, multifaceted educational space dedicated to helping visitors connect and engage with British mixed heritage and culture in ways that expand perspectives, spark curiosity and creativity, and increase knowledge. Before the Institute opened, there would have been an online exhibition which invited the public to contribute their stories of British identity, and this would be an area of the exhibition. In between these spaces, there would be opportunity to exit onto the quiet green space in the lower area alongside the road. With lots of thoughts racing through their minds, the Shankla family leaves the exhibition and re-enters the central green space. There, some of them take a moment to sit and have a quiet talk about what they thought on the seats overlooking the space, while another walks over the boardwalk on the marsh, and when they reach the end, they find the listening booth and someone waiting with a microphone who invites them to talk about their experiences with living in Britain and British identity. After this, they meet at the cafe for lunch, and someone notices how easy it is for a family with 2 young children to eat while the youngsters run in circles along the green space and across the boardwalk. It is a contained atmosphere which feels safe and cared for. They then drop by the discussion in the Pillar Hall, with a few of them breaking away to visit the exhibition on food. In the Pillar Hall they notice how the vast feeling from the height of the space reminds them that whatever they are feeling in the moment is small, the world is vast, and even though the discussion gets heated at points, the circular shape keeps the group feeling whole. As the evening approaches, they meet again to watch the show in the Dr. Vishnu Razia Theatre, where they enter and sit with their friend on the front row. They see the people up in the balcony and think the warm timber walls make a cosy atmosphere. There is an intermission where they go to the mezzanine level and get a drink while overlooking the forest and the Pillar Hall. They notice that they are sitting on bleacher seating, and another visitor tells them that the seats can be pulled back and the space used for gigs or dance competitions, for instance. When they leave afterwards, they walk back through this space, with the lights glowing amongst the columns, and the feeling follows them all the way home. Now I would like to explain some of the spaces which were not mentioned in the primary narratives. In the Civic Institute, there is a more private area, separated from the main institute by a glazed walkway. This is the Outreach Centre, which has classrooms for sessions such as how to teach the history of empire, or where local school children could come to learn more about the cultures they live amongst. I took inspiration for this area from the Multicultural Centre I visited in Warsaw, which had similar spaces. These also include support spaces, such as a lawyer's and counsellor's office for the local community use. On the other side of the private green space is the creche for the whole building users, such as the staff of the institute, market stall holders, and residents. There are admin offices in this space, and 2 other primary staff spaces. One is by the rear staff entrance underneath the railway station bridge, with staff room connected to the cafe kitchen and storage space. The other staff spaces are behind the box office of the theatre, and a small space behind the information point, which has access to tend the wild green space. There's the rehearsal room connected to the theatre, which can also be used by the community for private group uses. And finally, the important bingo hall has been given plenty of space. Inspiration for the forest space was taken from the contemplative court in the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., and the foyer of the Museum of the History of Polish Jews, which I visited in Warsaw, which both deal with topics which require reflection, and the architecture is dramatic as a means to facilitate this. The forest in this project is intended to create a space like this also, which makes the visitor pause at the threshold of the institute. The central space takes reference from courtyard spaces found around the world, with the cooling effects of water and planting intended to help combat the warming climate of London. Enhanced urban greenery can lead to surface temperatures within a green space of up to 20 degrees lower than surroundings, giving rise to air temperatures in the region of 2 to 8 degrees cooler. The presence of water improves this even further. The Alhambra in Spain, which was built in AD 889, uses this concept successfully. When visiting the Calouste Gulbenkian Museum in Lisbon, I noticed the effects of the water and greenery and the immediate calm which came from combining this with a concrete building. Please now follow Elizabeth Duke with me. She owns a small shop in the market called Medellín y su Moda, which provides women's fashion pieces, including particular Colombian jeans and body shapers. She had been at the previous Elephant and Castle shopping centre for 10 years and had been worried about where to go when the building was demolished. Because the centre has been saved, she has been able to relocate her shop in the new market as all existing traders were given first choice on the new retail floor, and has been trading for a few months now. She opens her shop late morning after dropping her son off at school, and arrives by bus from the south side. From the bus stop, she walks through the community square to get to her shop, which is in the lanes. Here she sees that already the square is busy, with a dance group practicing tango and people taking their morning coffee on the grass or at her friend's cafe El Wambra, another shop owner from the previous shopping centre. She smiles at the statue of Frida Kahlo and makes her way into the lanes, which always remind her of the lively streets of her childhood in Colombia. The lanes open up into one of the sunny plazas in the centre, and she unlocks her shop, ready for the busy day ahead. The lanes have been carefully planned as an intervention in the monolithic existing structure, which allows for a domestic and intimate courtyard and market town atmosphere. It is a juxtaposition to the more grand and reflective civic centre. It was important to have a square in the project, to have a dedicated community space which opens and invites the wider community into the smaller village that is the market and housing. The statue of Frida was chosen because she's a symbol understood by both Latin Americans and British, and commemorates the hard work done by the Latin community to regenerate the shopping centre. Here we meet Lila in her bedroom, where she wakes up early for school and knows her brother is next door and probably pretending to be asleep, but will make them late anyway. She gets dressed, goes to the bathroom, and as she comes out, she hears her mum upstairs, so she goes up to see her having a coffee on the balcony while she hangs up the washing. After she says good morning and waves at Alicia in the house next door, she runs downstairs to help her dad, who is preparing breakfast. There, her baby brother is talking to his friend out the window, and she can see the neighbours having breakfast together outside, while the granddads sit on the bench and grumble together. She goes for a morning run up the tower, which tires her out every time, but gives her the best view over the city, and she loves watching the luscious plants as they follow her all the way up. On her way there, she watches the market below as it begins to wake up, and she loves being part of the hustle and bustle, while also having her own space above the lanes, where she can meet her friend Ceci, who joins her for the run this morning. She then goes to school via the overground railway station. When she returns in the afternoon, she meets Ceci and some other friends for a picnic on the rooftop garden, and has to rush off quickly as she's forgotten her dance class in the studio of the Civic Institute. After the busy day, she returns home tired and goes back to her bedroom for a long sleep. Inspiration for the housing was taken from projects such as Elemental's Quinta Monroy in Mexico, where half a house was built to be filled in later by the residents, and OMMX's Naked House design in London, where the internal finishing was left bare and space was left for extension. Where the concept for this project differs is that the full frame will be built and the external cladding will be decided by the resident as much as the internal. This will require further discussion between architect and resident throughout the process, but the design using timber framing was chosen to be the most accessible, as it can be altered with carpentry skills. There are 25 housing units, which could be 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms, depending on the input of the residents. The houses are designed to be adaptable, with a fixed external frame, which can have different window and internal wall configurations. Additionally, the residents can choose to have a roof terrace or extra internal floor space, as required. The houses have been clustered in 2s or 3s, with a shared communal courtyard with raised growing beds, to facilitate community interconnection. The houses have also been designed to maximize the possibility for self-expression externally, with a vast amount of possible cladding and window finishing combinations. Now, I would like to take you through the design considerations in more detail. Firstly, ecological design has been incorporated throughout the proposal and intended to work with the water strategy. Different habitats have been provided to encourage diverse wildlife on site. This includes wetland habitat, scrub habitat, wildflower meadow, and a small woodland. The public road has been improved using flood mitigation and pollutant mitigation design, with rain gardens built into the curb. These are shallow landscaped depressions that reduce rainfall runoff and mitigate the impact of pollution. They can be used to enhance the capacity of the surface water piped drainage network by capturing and storing rainfall, allowing it to soak into the ground or release it slowly back into the piped network. This will drain into the basement level green spaces. Green roofs can reduce summer heat gains by up to 60%, while also attenuating stormwater, improving air quality and biodiversity. And it was also important to provide public green spaces for gathering to be provided on site to minimize distance of travel for residents. A rainwater capture system has been designed to allow for reuse in the dwellings, with 1,050 square metre capture area, totaling 42,000 litres per month, which is more than enough to provide toilet flushing, amongst other things, for the whole building. Rainwater will be filtered in 2 tanks in the basement, with grey water filtered in the wild green space alongside the road. While trees provide evapotranspiration cooling benefits and can also provide shading to hard landscaping at street level, where trees are specified within street canyons, the trees can exacerbate issues for pollution, as fresh air mixing is reduced, and the pollution levels have been found to get trapped. For this reason, directly alongside the road, there are minimal trees to provide airflow, and the rain gardens are at a low level, with pollution mitigating planting. The houses have been orientated south to maximize solar gain, with all houses Passive House certified, and with a low heat demand of 8.7 kilowatt hours per metre squared per annum. This was tested at design stage in Design pH software to check the proximity of the surrounding houses, as this could have greatly impacted the project if they caused too much overshadowing, for both solar gain and daylighting. The kitchen dining areas have primarily been placed downstairs for sociability with the community, but the brighter living spaces have been designed for the top level, which open out onto the terraces. The daylighting was tested and found to be at a comfortable level in all the spaces. Also vital for Passive House, a continuous thermal envelope has been designed, with excellent linear thermal bridging tested in Therm software. Please see the accompanying technical report for more detail. The external materiality is eclectic and colourful to allow for a vibrant atmosphere, while using recycled and natural materials where possible. The design of the housing system has allowed for different cladding options, as can be seen from the two elevations shown here. Timber frame construction is adaptable and accessible for the residents. Materials with a low embodied energy and low VOCs have been chosen, with a breathable fabric first design. The new build housing and market has been raised off the existing concrete slab with brick piers to allow for ventilation and a service void. This also means that the market appears to be on ground level to the visitor, with planting and paving possible over an earth floor. The houses and walkways are supported by a network of glulam beams and columns at market level. There are two distinct thermal strategies between the housing and the civic centre. The housing has many small spaces with varied requirements for temperature, air supply, illuminance and noise level, primarily using heating, whereas the civic centre has larger spaces with more consistent requirements requiring cooling. It was advised by an M&E engineer that this could work well with a 5th generation heat loop, which combines both heating and cooling. This system is relatively new compared to 4th generation heat systems, but works better when this balance is necessary. It can supply both heating and cooling by allowing the interchange of energy between the two. Therefore, buildings in heating mode then become prosumers to supply cooling in other buildings, and vice versa. It works off a very low temperature heat loop, around 20 degrees, which means that there is very little heat loss, requiring little insulation for pipework. The source of the heat loop will come from the Bakerloo line, which runs underneath the existing building, and the Elephant and Castle tube station is right alongside, which allows for access to the tunnels. This provides heat for the ambient heat loop system, and allows for cooling to be returned to the overheated tube tunnels. While this particular combination has never been completed before, the engineer assured me it was possible. Thank you for going with me on this journey through the proposal for the Elephant and Castle British Institute for Intercultural Identity. I hope, like the Institute intends to do, that it has sparked a conversation and reflection in your mind about identity and a sense of place. If you would join me on one final visit, we return to Lila and Ceci again as they watch the procession of El Señor de los Milagros, a Catholic festival celebrated every year in Peru, winding its way through the lanes and plazas of their home in Britain. Lila watches as her mum sheds a small tear, and she asks if she is sad. No, my darling, I am so happy. You have your home and heritage as one.